Rugby Roots is brought to you by Compede Melbourne Nomad Sevens. Visit the top link in the description for more information. Well, welcome back to Rugby Roots, a show where we discover where our favourite players found their love for the game. In this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by the Gloucester centre, Mark Atkinson. Hello, Mark. How are you? You well?
I'm very well, thank you, Will. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No problem. Well, I want to start at the beginning. Where did you first start playing rugby? Where did your love for the game come to be?
I guess sort of what before school and club. Well, school and club before sort of anything professional or any serious rugby really. I was playing at a club called Lim, and school was quite. I think our school was very, very. I don't know whether we just had a good age group or good people around us at the time, but our school was very competitive for a regular school, and sort of my group of friends. I think it's just carried on. I think a lot of our friends still play to our level. Necessarily the highest level, but some of them still play to a very good level, and it's just never really left us. I think that's probably the key to it.
So when did things start getting a bit more serious for you? Talk me through your teenage years in rugby.
Well, I think it's tough because you see a lot of people sort of jump on the pathway and then stay in and sort of get not an easy route to the top, but certainly once you're in that sort of pathway as it is. You play some county rugby and someone says you're all right. So then pop down to played a bit at school and then Sales sort of asked me to come along to be part of their ACE, what would be their ACE program now, I guess it is, the junior academy setup. But none of it is like it was now, that you pop down there on a Wednesday night and it was okay and nobody really tells you anything and you don't really know where you're at and you don't know. So in some respects it was brilliant, but others you just sort of take it as it came really. It wasn't a case of saying, all right, well, you're in now and this is what's going to happen to you. So that's where I'd say seems to have got so much better. Like we would just turn up their training, and then got to finished A levels and things, and they were like, yeah, we'll sign you for a year. Didn't really think about what it was you were signing, what the money was, anything like that. Just sort of thought, yeah, this is good. I'll give this a go.
So you, as we mentioned there, you spent some academy and some of your younger years with Prem sides, and then you were given the opportunity to come down to the Championship, first with Isha and then with Bedford Blues. Were you ever, when you made the move to the Championship, were you ever nervous that maybe that was the end of your Prem days and that you wouldn't be able to make it back up, or was that always the aim for you to use the Championship as a bounce back tool to make it to the top league?
I think people would kid themselves if they said they want to go down to come back. I think it's something people can say on reflection now. I can say, I enjoyed the time there and I did. I loved it, but I probably struggled with injuries and consistency, and also sort of struggled with knowing what was it like to be a professional as well. Nobody really teaches you that side of the game at that age. I think they're probably better educated about it all now, but certainly back then it was a case of, just do this and sort of try and follow and try and work out for yourself. And it probably took me longer than most people to work it out. So I would have said I was a fairly talented 18, 19-year-old without a level of professionalism in my head, I guess, at the time. And it probably showed the fact that when you say chose to go down to the Championship, I'm not sure I think that choice was made for me. So, and then as you kindly reminded me, I did it's a relegation in my first year, and then got a chance to go to Bedford, which has saved me of the desire to get back to the Premiership. I think that was more it. You need not just the drive. There's loads of good players in the Championship. You need to be sort of a bit desperate, I think. And I started to get to an age where I was like, people aren't taking you as serious anymore because your England 20s thing is once that, you get a couple of years of hanging your hat on that. And then after that, then there's two more crops have come through. So you're not promising youngsters anymore. You're sort of, right, they should have made it by now. And if they've not, then they should be on their way. So I think that's a tough time. The 23, 24-year-old is a tough age when these days it seems like squads are filling themselves up with young academy players or top end players, and that in between ages is a tough time to be.
Luckily, you managed to make your way back into the Prem, and you've broken into this Gloucester squad and really made that 12 shirt your own in recent years. Talk me. How would you kind of describe your recent years with Gloucester?
Yeah, like you said, I sort of arrived, playing second fiddle and playing a bit part here and there, and still playing plenty of games, but it wasn't necessarily the games that you want to be involved in. And we were in. Fortunately for me, we were actually in the second tier of Europe for quite a number of my first years. So always there would be rest weeks for a lot of the starting team, and you would tend to sort of get enough games in those years, and I loved it. I loved being part of the squad for the first few years, and then obviously more and more time to start and more time to be involved and be a sort of a slightly more permanent fixture. You can never take that for granted, but you need coaches that believe in you. And luckily, Johan, especially in the last few years, decided that he wanted to give me more fortune to play with a lot of good players, some valued by everybody, others less valued by fans. And for my first years, I was also playing with a load of friends as well. We had a great group of friends, which I think is often missed out these days in rugby. That I'm playing alongside Jacob Rowan, Bill Burns, Bill Meeks, Henry Purdy, Cal Braley. These boys who we were all such a close unit as well, and not necessarily anybody was definitely a starter at that point, but we were all growing and coming through and wanting to develop together. I say we, obviously there's about 5 years between me and some of them boys, but I like to think of myself still as in that group. And we had a great time with it. And then the last few years, obviously a lot of them have moved on, and it's sort of probably given me opportunity to change my role a little bit in the squad. So now I sort of take a slightly more senior role, and as age creeps up on you, you start to have to look after some of the squad values whilst still working on your own things, but look after some more things around the place that are happening.
And it must be a pretty good time to be one of those old heads, as I say that quite lightly, in that Gloucester squad. Some really promising young talent coming through at Kingsholm. Talk to me about those, how relieving it is to see those young talent, especially in the backs, coming through at such a ripe young age.
Yeah, I think you're right. And what's probably a shame is, and the fans will probably say this as well, and we've probably let too many of our talented youngsters go. You look around the Premiership and you see, well, not just the Premiership, international stage. You see Sam Underhill, Elliot Stooke, Johnny Hill, Bill Burns. Even Henry Purdy down now doing it at Bristol. You think we've let too many of these boys who've come through our academy and come through and then go. So that's obviously something the club want to work on, want to keep the retention. But then to see the last few years, getting it. Ollie Thorley's still very young. People forget that because he's been around for a few years. But all of a sudden you look to both wings, Zam and Thorlo are both early 12. Zam's probably not even out of nappies yet, is he? But Zam and Thorlo are both very young still, and they're getting to learn from the likes of Johnny coming back, who's also a local boy who wants to be at the club. And I think this is one of the things people, you want players who want to be there. I think, without speaking out of turn, I think Gloucester over the years may have signed some players, and it's easy to say now in reflection, but signed some players that perhaps maybe were there for the wrong reasons, and that's not necessarily the players' fault. That's the club's fault at times, and everyone's held their hands up to that. But I know there's a huge drive within the club now to keep the production line of academy boys going. We've got some exciting forwards coming through as well. So I know we've been blessed with some speedsters recently, but we've got some great forwards that are probably going to get a good opportunity. And it can only go from strength to strength for some of them.
Now, we can't talk about Gloucester without talking about the man who plays inside you at Kingsholm, Danny Cipriani. What is it like playing with Danny week in, week out, and creating such a successful partnership over these past few years?
He's good. He arrived, and obviously, wherever Danny goes, the media follows. So straight away, he gave a sort of a good excitement to the squad, which was great, and to the club. And then from there, but what you don't realise with Danny is obviously the media hype and the fancy plays at times and things like this, but it's also his dedication to just wanting the club to be successful and the team to be successful, and sort of like his obsession with rugby. And that's what it is. I'll use that in a healthy term. It is an obsession for him, and probably worry if he's not got rugby after when he finishes, he's probably going to have to go straight into coaching. But He's obviously fantastically talented, but it's also the way he sees the game and his decision making that it's not necessarily the one-off passes that you keep seeing on BT Sport played over and over again. They're not as freakish as people might think. There's a lot of calculation in a lot of things he does, and it's not, he plays within a structure that he's been playing with for years, so therefore he's become almost the best at playing in that structure. And I use in inverted commas his structure that he goes and you see it at Sale, he put it in place at Wasps when he was there, and now he's put it in place at ours, and other teams have started